Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is another episode of The Big Boys right here on the Pregame Show Network. I am joined by Coach Carl Reed. He's a college football analyst for 24/7 Sports and the proprietor of the Pregame Show Network. It's our guy, Uncle Neely. Carl, let's first start the show, man. Let's send some warm wishes, literally, to Uncle Neely, man. He is getting it in out there in the snow, in the cold. He's doing yeoman's work in Boulder, Colorado. So Carl, let's give him those literal warm greetings to start the show.
Hey, man, that weather's cold down there, Charlie. I'm going to tell you what, I was just telling Neely I was going to come out there probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and I looked at that weather report and the pictures he sent me. I say, wait a minute, man, let me rethink this again.
Hey, brothers, I ain't mad at you. I was setting up this shot for the big boys, and man, the snow is so beautiful out there on Folsom Field, but everywhere that I could get where you could see the snow means I'm also feeling it. So I'm sitting in Coach Prime's recruitment lounge, and I can see the snow out the window, but I ain't going out there, not for no shot.
Hey, Neely, this sets you up with a lot of options for Halloween, man. This snow in October. I'm looking forward to your creativity. I'm leaning on the abominable snowman for Uncle Neely. All right, Carl Reed, let's get into some warm weather things that we saw over the weekend, and that was the game against UCLA. Neely and I talked about it just a little bit, man, but we're saving the good stuff for you. We saw a game against UCLA. Colorado came up on the short end of the stick. They could move the ball, Carl, but they could not get into the end zone. It was field goals until a late touchdown. What was the difference between getting down the field and getting into the end zone?
Tightening up the offensive line. And that's been a theme for us every week on the show, is how poorly the offensive line is playing. But I think when I look at some of the tape, they got to go back to the drawing board on some of the assignments. You know, you got to go back to the drawing board on some of the schematics that you're using offensively in terms of being able to move the pocket a little bit with Shedeur. He was kind of a sitting duck down there on some overload blitzes, on some double A gap blitzes. And there are some things that you have to be able to do, bringing in a tight end, bringing in an H-back to get you an extra gap back when they're overload blitzing. And what I mean by that is when you're blitzing 4 guys over 3 guys or 2 guys over 1 guy, and you're given an extra advantage. You got to keep somebody else in the block, somebody to chip. You have to run some shorter combination routes from the inside out instead of from the outside in, to give those guys an opportunity to maximize numbers in the box. So we've talked about the personnel. I know Coach Prime talked about personnel in his press conference, but for the rest of this season, you have to do some things offensively to help those guys out a little bit. And they kind of got left out, hung out to dry a little bit on Saturday.
You know, Carl, exactly right. And with you taking that offensive side of it, as far as what kept us from turning 3 points into 6 and getting an extra point for 7, I'll take the defensive side of it. You know, hats off to UCLA, not just a premier defensive front in the Pac-12, but ranking nationally in what they do, and have one definite and possibly 2 players who are going to be first and second round picks in this upcoming draft. When you get down that field, Tolly, as you described, and you're moving the ball methodically down the field, here's what happens when you get down there. The back of the end zone becomes another defender, a whole row, the whole field wide of another defender. Now they know there's not too much depth behind us, and they're coming even harder than before. And you get these drives that stall out because of the reasons offensively that Coach Carl Reed articulated. Not having an extra tight end to help with blocking, not having a running back with a pass protection role. And so they're coming even harder. Thankfully, we have Alejandro Mata. He don't miss. Came from Jackson State at HBCU to be here in Colorado, and we were able to, in that first drive, get 3 points, and subsequently a number 3 going into halftime.
Carl, we saw a lot of quick screens, a lot of quick action, little short passes, getting the ball out of Shedeur's hands very quickly, and that was effective. You know, the announcers on the game talked about, hey, this could be setting the UCLA defense up to kind of lull them to sleep, to get something, you know, even further down the field in the passing game, but that never really seemed to materialize, not en masse at least. What was it about? What did UCLA do? What did Colorado not do for that game plan to fully carry out where those little short passes set UCLA up for something bigger?
UCLA defense adjusted. The defensive linemen stopped chasing the screen. They got burnt on it a couple of times early, and then they made the adjustment of slow playing it and dropping extra defenders into the screen lane. So that made the screen less effective, but they still were able to bring a tremendous amount of pressure, when they did that. So they're dropping guys into the screen lanes, and then they're still rushing an extra defender off the edge to put Shedeur in a situation where he has to get off the ball and doesn't have room or anywhere to go with it.
Man, once again, hammer, nail. You nailed it, Coach Carl Reed. And here's just a simple philosophy, Tolly, that I heard an old offensive coordinator in the NFL say. When people are saying, oh, man, we should do this, we should call this, why aren't we doing more of that? It's simple. You can't call what you can't block. So a lot of these things you would like to see us do on offense, Sean Lewis, his hands are tied. And I understand the criticism, and I get the criticism, but there are some things that you want to dial up that if you don't have a consistent pass protection role from your offensive line, if folks are just getting back there right at the snap in the quarterback's face, damned if you do, damned if you don't, there's not a lot you can draw up. The playbook becomes very limited in that regard.
Carl, how sustainable is it to try to make a living off the short game, off the quick game, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand? Like, how long can you do that before you just run into a brick wall?
Well, you can do it, but you have to be able at some point to block long enough that you can stretch the field after you get everybody creeping up on those short routes. Because if you can't protect the passer and you start dialing up short routes when they bring the safeties down and when they bring those corners down and press, if you can't defend long enough to go over the top, then they're just going to start rallying to the football and making tackles. And so it's not a long thing that you can sustain.
Yeah, and you saw that just with UCLA and the defensive adjustments they were able to make. But also credit to Shiloh Sanders, QB1. He would stand there in that face of pressure, and when the opportunity came, he's going to find Jimmy Horn Jr. cutting across the back end zone, or Zay Weaver on a go route right there on the boundary. And one thing about when you're going up top to say it's Zay Weaver, a couple things going to happen, Coach Reed. He's either going to catch the ball or it's going to be pass interference. We just need enough time for that true route to develop where Shedeur can get that ball in the air and good things are going to happen. And you saw it happen. Zay gets a big catch. Zay gets a pass interference. Jimmy Horn gets a touchdown. But it all starts with what kind of protection are we getting time-wise from that O-line?
One more thing about the O-line here. I don't want to turn this into beat up the O-line show. This is the big boys. There are some big boys on that line, some tall guys. And I've seen and I've heard, talking about the ability to bend, the ability to get low. It is, being 6'10", really an advantage on the offensive line. There was one play they highlighted in slow motion, Carl. The end, he came off the edge, and the offensive lineman, Carl, it looked like he did his best to get out there, but he did not even touch him. It was just speed on size. Shedeur was still in his backdrop, like he was still rolling back, hadn't planted that back foot yet, and the defender was already on him. Talk a little about the battle on that line and how speed can really just wreck size sometimes.
Well, if you look at the combine numbers for the top edge rushers that are going into the National Football League from college, the top linebackers, what they're running, guys are running anywhere between 4.38 to 4.57. That's tremendous speed coming off the edge. So when you recruit an offensive lineman, besides size, besides length, one of the biggest traits that you must have is flexibility, the ability to bend, the ability to move at a low gravitational level. So when you can combat those guys coming off the edge, if you're stiff, if you can't bend your knees, if you can't bend at the waist, then you're going to have a lot of trouble pass protecting against some of those real twitchy elite pass rushers. So that's something that I'm sure in recruiting will be evaluated when they're looking at guys in the future, not only playing offensive tackle, but playing guard as well.
Absolutely. You hear it all the time in football, Tolly and Coach Reed, low man wins. Who is getting that leverage, who's getting that low center of gravity, who can dip and contort their body to make sure they're working those right angles. We've always said on the big boys that, listen, man, the biggest jump in performance is between week 1 and week 2. After that, there's just incremental coaching up and incremental game time experience where you see guys get better. So here we are with 4 games left to play. this offensive line, talent-wise, ability-wise, is what you have. The next way to improve it is postseason. The only way to improve it right now is what Coach Carl Reed started to show off with, is you got to do some different scheme things, show some different things on film that your future opponents have not seen in game tape from your previous opponents. You got to give some different looks out there. But from a talent, performance, ability to bend, speed, we ain't got a guy on the O-line that's going to get faster the next 4 weeks. We ain't got a guy on the O-line that's about to get more flexible the next 4 weeks. That is what it is. Now you have to dress it with different looks.
Wow, you guys hit it right on the head there. It was not a win, but it was not all bad. Let's talk about some of the positive things that we saw, and you have to start with Travis Hunter. Coach Neely and I tossed this around on the rewind this week. Very few cornerbacks, this is not just a trait that is just widespread, can dictate what the quarterback will do. You know, a lot of your defenders are just reacting to what the quarterback will do. Travis Hunter baited the UCLA quarterback into not one, but 2 interceptions. Can you explain to the viewers out there what he did on those plays and how remarkable it is for him to do that and just control that entire play?
Well, he has great open field coverage, meaning that he can open his hips and he can get deep quickly, but he can also fake like he's open and halfway through and has tremendous clothing speed so he can come and cut off a short route. And that's something that only the great ones do. God gives you a special level of ability. Everybody can't do that. So he's able to give the quarterback one look, but actually be doing something else. And typically you need 2 guys to play that type of game or put the quarterback in that type of predicament. But if he drops about 5 or 6 yards, he can still accelerate and get deep, and he can come and cut off that underneath ball and pick it off. So it puts you as a quarterback in a weird situation, not really knowing where he's going to be. And if you try it, you see what happens when you try it.
You know, absolutely. I've seen a couple guys do it well. Ed Reed from the safety position, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime from the corner position, who had the ability, that God-given talent and muscle twitch, that they could show you one look, go 5 yards the other way, only to just flip their hips and come back and get you. You know, you've seen Ed Reed fake on Peyton Manning like he was taking another hash and come back and pick the ball off. You've seen Coach Prime do it. I'm making this receiver look open because I want you to throw the ball. I was standing next to T.O. on the sideline, Terrell Owens, and when he saw it happen, he said, man, that's just NFL talent right there. You have guys in the league that can't bait a quarterback like that and still make the play. But he also said you have to look at the mental aspect of it. Here's Travis understanding that should this fail, should I not get to the ball, I know I have a guy behind me that can make the play. So it's not the gamble that appears, but with his speed and his hands, he's able to break on that ball, man, and come up with an interception, not once, but twice in the game. A game where you had 4 takeaways and still lost the game.
Neely, you're reading my mind because I wanted you guys to break down how much of a risk is that to bait the quarterback. So Carl, let me ask that question in a different way. Is it a situation where Travis knows, you know, what his defense is in? He knows he has that insurance policy and he knows that everything lined up that, hey, this is the play where I can try this here.
Well, it's not a huge risk. Like Neely said, if you got safety help over the top. So if you're in a cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, it's something that you know that you can do. If you're in cover 1, if you're in 0, then you are putting yourself in a weird predicament if it doesn't work out, if you miss the tackle, if you don't get the pick. And so Travis is a student of the game. He understands the system very well. He understands that he has help over the top. So he's putting the quarterback in a weird space, but he's not putting himself in a weird space. He knows exactly what he's doing in that situation.
Nothing to add to that, but amen and pass the plate, because now the quarterback is the one having to make the decision. You know, Tolly started this off with a lot of cornerbacks are out there reacting. You know, now he's making the quarterback react to him. The ball is coming to that side of the field. Which one you going to throw it to, big boy? I'm in between both of these guys, and I can get to either one of them. And you pick that choice, and I'm going to go get it. And luckily for UCLA in that first one, that he was in a position that he had to dive to get it, because had he broken that ball and been standing upright, that's a pick 6. He's gone to the house. No one's catching it.
All right. So when you talk about the defense, and you talk about, the right coverages and the way things are schematically where you can do different things. A big part of that is having a quarterback on the defense, and that is Shiloh Sanders. He gets ejected for targeting in that game early on after having some really big hits and some aggressive plays. Guys, how fine of a line is that? Shiloh, to me, appears to be one of those players that you can almost predict he's coming in with that shoulder. He has, he's the CEO of the headache game for a reason because he knows how to deliver that hit. But what I find a lot of times with defenders, depending on the position that the offensive player ends in, where his head ends up bracing for the tackle, can often just end up with two heads colliding. How fine of a line is that?
Well, for me, I think when you're talking about targeting in itself, there has to be some consistency on the call. And when I watch college football from week to week, it seems like referees call it different. I thought that targeting was something when you use the crown of your helmet or when you use your helmet as part of the tackle. He didn't use his helmet. He used his shoulder. And so it wasn't a call that I like. I understand targeting calls. I wish that they did not have an ejection that went with targeting. So he didn't use his helmet. It looked like a clean hit to me from the play that I saw.
Absolutely. Here's my challenge with all of it. I understand the officiating on the field is fast, it's bang, bang, different angles, different views. Sometimes you just see a jarring reaction. You hear a certain sound. It sounded like helmet to helmet. You saw a player moving a certain way. You throw the flag. The problem I have with the Shiloh Sanders ejection is the review process. It was clear to me in the review. I understand spur of the moment to flag, but in the review, it was clearly leading with the shoulder, not the crown of the head. He did not launch with the crown of the head. He didn't make contact to the other player's head with the crown of his head. It was just incidental contact that when the offensive player sort of balled up, knowing that this hit is coming, that their face masks kind of clinked each other. It was clear as day to me that during the review process, this is going to be overturned. So whether it's New York or LA or whether they're sending this stuff in the satellite, my challenge is their call. I kind of understand that it's the call on the field is going to be different game to game, week to week, because you're dealing with a human eye and rapid fire succession, bang, bang. But when you go to the review process, that's where the inconsistency just blows my mind. No way he should have been ejected from that game.
Yeah, I look at, I don't think a player would ever do this, but if the offensive player is the last player to kind of make that microsecond move and he puts his head in there, it's going to be the defender's fault. So some of this stuff is, I think we all know what intentional just launching looks like. And that play did not look like it. But it is what it is. He gets ejected. What do you miss on the defensive end when you don't have the guy whose job it is to make sure everybody's in the right position, calling things out, being that leader in that defensive backfield, if you will? What can that cause? What do you miss from his absence?
It causes mass confusion because you just said it, Charlie. He's the guy who makes the calls on the back end. He's the guy that makes the checks and gets everybody in position. So when you have that guy come out, somebody else has to be able to step up and do that. And I don't know if they have another guy besides Shiloh who can do it. Shiloh is a guy, he's going to make the right call, the right check. He's going to make sure everybody's in position. And especially when you start playing some of the younger corners, you really need that on the back end.
Absolutely. And I think that whereas you have other guys who can do the task, Trevor Woods is a guy who can go from safety to linebacker in his understanding of his defense. But when you take out a Shiloh, not only is his understanding higher, not only is his time spent with Coach Charles Kelly higher, it is the charisma and personality of his leadership and communication. Sometimes guys give out instruction in a meek manner to kind of whisper it. They don't get in the other guy's butt when they're in the wrong place. Shiloh Sanders is a vocal leader on the field, on the sideline, in the locker room. So when you take away not only his big hits, who it caused a fumble, you take away his voice out there, you take away his knowledge out there, and it's going to lead to some of what you saw in that second half. Notice you didn't see a lot of that in the first two quarters, but you saw it in the third and fourth when the defensive leader was not out there. Thankfully, with it being the first half ejection, he's going to be in there the whole time when we play this weekend.
Well, a final note from the game before we start to look forward. Carl, if I would have told you on Friday night, Colorado's going to have 4 turnovers. They're going to turn the ball over, or they're going to force UCLA to turn the ball over 4 times. What would have been your level of confidence that Colorado would have gotten the dub?
I would have said if the defense forces 4 turnovers, Colorado's going to win. That's what I would have said.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I would have put my level of confidence for victory right up there, just under 29-0 at halftime against Stanford. If you tell me someone took the ball away 4 times, I'm going to check the box that they won. And when you tell me they didn't, I'm going to then go to the rush yards. And then you see the clear difference there. I think we probably finished, if you look at just the running backs, we probably finished with about 40 yards rushing. But when you add in the yards lost or getting sacked, that kind of thing, we may have had a negative running game. And so that is where you see that difference in the 4 takeaways. The inability to run the ball, the inability to protect Shiloh Sanders totally eliminates getting 4 turnovers.
All right, so moving forward, 4 games left in the regular season, unless there's a bowl, and then there'll be a postseason for Colorado. They still need 2 wins. Carl, I know better than to ask you about bowls, so I will ask you about one of the most important things offensively moving forward, and we know about the line, but Coach Prime talked about how important first downs are. What would you say should be an emphasis or some things that you'll look for on first down attempts moving forward for Colorado in these last 4 games?
Listen, no matter how we draw it up, no matter whether we're talking about first, second, or third down, the key is protecting the passer. You have one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's an NFL guy, and your point of emphasis as an offensive staff and as an offensive unit has to be to keep Shiloh Sanders protected, because you have seen that if you keep him protected, you have an opportunity to win every football game. So you find a way to protect your quarterback, whether it's going max protect by bringing in extra tight ends and just letting Travis and Weaver go one-on-one on the perimeter. You protect the quarterback, you give yourself a tremendous chance to win the game.
I love it. And what I'll put a footnote under that play-wise or yardage-wise, if we can go out there 1st and 10, and after that play, based on what Carl Reeves just articulated with some protection, we're now looking at, say, 2nd and 3. Man, the entire playbook is open. Now you got the defense having to be completely honest. They can't sell out one way or the other, because 2nd and 3 is one of those spots on the field where it's like, hey, I got 3rd down. If I'm on the other side of 50, I even got 4th down. It all starts with getting positive yards on first and getting ahead of the chains, not behind them. What you can have happen is what you see systematically here, because we can't protect. We go from 1st and 10 to now 2 and 16. That's when you get behind, and that's when the defense line gets even more aggressive on their blitzing, because they know they have the yardage advantage on their side.
Well, guys, this is what the landscape is. Colorado has been the most popular team in college football. They were hot to start the season. They have not been hot the last few weeks, and all of it comes back to the offensive line. But still, those are the guys you have to play with. Moving forward, the next 4 weeks, Carl, how do you still keep it together when everybody in the room knows this is our weak spot, this is our deficiency? But you still need to keep these guys motivated. You still need to keep them uplifted. You still have to find a way to get their best every week out of the next 4 weeks.
I think that Shiloh Sanders actually has been doing a good job of it, because he hasn't thrown him under the bus. He hasn't shown public frustration, and he's continued to be positive with those guys. Maybe, to a point, to a fault almost. A lot of quarterbacks would be very fiery with those guys and hold them accountable. So I think the main thing, though, is that Shiloh is the leader of the team, has not imploded on those guys yet. So they've just got to find a will and a way to get their jobs done.
And we also have to let them know and encourage them that, hey, man, your next opponent is not your past opponent. Everybody doesn't have a defensive line and Coach Chip Kelly drawing up those schemes over there with Ken Norton on the sideline, coaching them up as well. So just because UCLA did this to you doesn't mean Arizona is going to do this to you. You got to take it 1 week at a time, one opponent at a time. You also have to go back and look at the success. Look what we did at TCU. Look what we did versus Nebraska here at home and Colorado State at home. You got those wins. Look what we did at Arizona State on the road. You have instances where with mediocre, average, or even above average play from this offensive line, that we can create situations where we can get wins. Just because UCLA got the best of us up front doesn't mean that doesn't mean that Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, or Utah can. One game at a time, one position group at a time. You're not facing an NFL caliber UCLA draft pick, D-line every time you play. So don't worry about that. Turn the page, focus on what your next opponent does and how to protect based on them.
Carl, 4 weeks remaining. Colorado would love to win all 4. They need 2 to extend the season. They need 1 just to break the losing streak here. Do you see a path to victory for Colorado moving forward where they can find a couple, however many wins in the last month of the season here?
I definitely do. They still have a talented team. They're still playing with 2 of the very best players in the country on the offensive side of the ball, and one of those guys also plays defense. If they take care of the ball, if the defense continues to improve to where they continue to force turnovers, and you do some creative things to get Shedeur on the move out of the pocket and give him an opportunity to throw, you have a chance to win any of these remaining games down the stretch.
It's look in the mirror time, Tolly. It's look in the mirror time, Coach Reed. What do you see? Do you see yourself as who lost to Stanford? Do you see yourself as who lost to UCLA? Or do you see yourself as the player in the team that went to TCU on the first week of the season, taking on a program that was in the national championship and beating them? Do you see yourself as a team who beat Nebraska, your rival, historic rival at home? Which team is going to show up? I would submit to you that the team that showed up in the first half for Stanford or the entire game for Nebraska and TCU can go 4-0 the rest of the way. However, you could be the team that was in the second half of Stanford or the second half of UCLA, and you can go 0-4 the rest of the way. It's gut check time. It's look in the mirror. I am a believer that we can get 2 of these 4 and get a bowl game. But I know my brother, Coach Carl Reed, don't talk about it like that. It's 1 week at a time. So 1 week at a time, let's get this next one, and then we'll deal with what comes after that.
America, we try. We try to get it out of Coach Reed, but no, he is not looking past mile marker number 1. He's not looking at mile number 2. He's only 1 ahead. But we can take a little moment here to look in the rearview mirror, because it was on this date, October 30th, as we record here. You might be listening a few days off, but 3 years ago, Neely had his first ever post-game interview. Any interview at all, right, Neely, with Deion Sanders?
Yeah, I had met Coach Prime the day he was announced at Jackson State, September 21st, 2020. But my first interview with him programmatically was on this date 3 years ago, the date that we're sitting here with the big boys.
And Carl, he has done one hell of a job, man, from meeting Coach Sanders to taking this platform to where it is with the in-depth coverage that we get of Coach Prime. Neely has taken these 3 years, man. I would say he took it to the house. 100-yard punt return here.
Hey, he's done it in a major way, man, and he's quickly made himself one of the top people in this space in the country.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I appreciate the kudos coming from 2 guys that have built platforms and stature in this space and industry. Thankful to Coach Prime for the opportunity that he's given me from that first interview. I literally just went up there, man, as a JSU guy to see if we were going to be playing daddy ball or not. Let me drive to Clarksdale to see if Shiloh Sanders really is what they say he is. And I left that game saying, man, the only reason he ain't a 5-star is because his last name is Sanders. Like, he really is that dude. So, and I've been proven right in the past three years since that. But let me now take my hat off to Coach Carl Reed, who's being recognized there in St. Louis coming up soon, man. Deluxe 100, or you can call it a Power 100, where they recognize people in St. Louis and Missouri who are doing their thing in their craft. And Coach Carl Reed is a needle mover when it comes to young men changing their lives through sports, and his articulation of sports on his broadcast with 24/7 and also additional programs such as this. So, man, let me flip it and say, whereas I thank you for thanking me for the past 3, let me thank you and salute you, Carl Reed, for your recognition and going forward. I think what we got here, Tolly, if nothing else, with you in the HBCU game day, 24/7, what Carl Reed has done in the pregame show, I think we're living up to the name Big Boys.
Hey,
Tell you guys something real quick. On the Deluxe 100 Award, they got down to 99 people, man, and there was 4 of us left. So they gave me the 100th spot because I won a dice game against 3 other guys. You know, so I'm just, 7-11. You know what I mean? So
Back to little Joe.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to finish that, Neely. Neely, if you did not clean up that rhyme opportunity, I was going to walk off the set. That's why we love Coach Reed, man. Just modest.
Humble.
Yes. You talk about first times with Coach Prime. I remember my first interview. It was SWAC Media Day. I come in, I'm excited, I'm ready to go. I bought all my extra cameras and my lights. Neely, I asked him the first question. Coach Prime got ready to answer, and he stopped and he looked around. He said, "Man, it's too loud in here. There's too many people talking. Let's figure that out. I'll get back with you." And I never saw him again that day. But to his credit, he did have his assistant Sam hook up with me, and he did a one-on-one Zoom a couple of weeks later. So. That turned out to be the best. I'm glad I got the one-on-one Zoom as opposed to the scrum there in the middle of the hotel lobby. And Coach Prime was like, "Nah, man, it's too loud in here. Let's do this."
I am not surprised. My good brother, Coach Prime, is very particular. Let's put it that way. And when the particulars don't line up, he will let you know, "I'm out."
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
Without hesitation. Guys, I was so looking forward to this episode, man. I talk about this all the time. I just look at the game as a fan, and I see things that I want deeper answers on, and you guys always bring it. Neely, there was one thing me and you talked about personally between us that hasn't gone on air, but tell us who that was that Travis Hunter ran over to after he got that interception. I think it was the first one, if I remember correctly. And there was just that exchange between coach and player. You could just feel the energy and the emotion. Take us behind the curtain with that exchange a little bit.
Yeah, man, Coach Carl Reed can attest to, man. Head coaches are CEOs, and they get to know their players, and position coaches as well get to know their players. But that coaching level, when you get to those graduate assistants and the time that they spend with players, man, some special bonds are formed. And you talk about coming from that HBCU space. Coach AB, who you saw Travis run over to, is a Southern Baton Rouge grad. Coach helped coach the secondary with Kevin Mathis at Jackson State, found his way to Colorado. And that was one of the things that he and Travis work on and talk about and foster, when you see a play like that and take advantage of it. And so when Travis got that ball, it's like one of those things that you're going to run to the stands and hand it to somebody, but he made a beeline, to his GA man and gave him a big hug because they've been through those film meetings, been through those practices and formed their relationship where, man, coach, I did what you suggested and it worked. And you could just see that was the culmination of good coaching and good relationship, which is something Coach Prime fosters from the top down.
Wow. And, those, Carl, you could probably attest to this, man. People always talk about Coach Prime, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and offensive line coach. He gets his name out there a lot. But some of these GAs, man, Carl, how big is the opportunity that Coach Prime has given some of these people, when he created that staff and, brought a lot of people from Jackson State and, had some one-on-one relationships where he really elevated people, the positions that they have and the opportunity that they have right now?
Well, it's hard to get opportunity in major college football. And so there's a lot of great coaches throughout the country at some of the lower levels of college ball, Division III, Division II, FCS, and they never get an opportunity. And so somebody giving you an opportunity to come to the highest level and prove that you belong is an elite level situation for you. Any man that asks for anything other in life than an opportunity is ungrateful. So when you get into those situations, you have to take advantage of it when your number's called, and he called those guys' number.
Well said, man. The opportunities here, are just limitless as Coach Prime has built his staff. And one of the things that I heard him say directly, to his staff, and this was, 9 months ago, is like, hey, man, get to know these players, work with these players, Open yourselves up to them, and they will do the same to you, because they need to come here not to play just for me. I want them coming to this school to play for you too. And one of the things players are going to do is they're going to talk about the relationship with their position coach and the graduate assistants in the room and the financial aid people. So he tells everybody involved in this program, man, open yourself up to these kids, avail yourselves, because you are a bigger recruiter for this program than I am.
And Neely is there for Chef and the Lobster Mac. He's
And Carl Reed is welcome anytime to come back for the Lobster Mac. You, Tolly, I'm going to make sure you just get a can of tuna or something.
Look, man, give me some canned mackerel and some rice, baby, and I am in there.
Man, nothing like a good old salmon croquette, man. That's what I want.
That is all I need. That is all I need. Well, look, guys, we have a great time every week. But Neely, I'm going to let you have the last word here today. I know there's somebody very special to you that you unfortunately lost over the weekend, and I just wanted to give you a moment to give him some honor here as we sign out.
I appreciate that, Tolly, and you as well, Coach Reed, for this personal opportunity. Good friend of mine, fraternity brother. We were in the same pledge class at Jackson State. Spring of 1991, Delta chapter. Derek Pope, number 5 on my line, passed away early Friday morning. And, just totally out of the blue, hit everybody hard, man. He was an exceptional husband, son, father, and brother, community leader, had just become treasurer of the JSU Foundation, raising money for all of JSU, not just athletics, was president of operations at Nissan North America, the Canton plant right outside of Jackson, Mississippi. And for a guy to be from Prentice, Mississippi, and go through Jackson State and Mississippi State engineering, and to have a wife and family that he had, and the impact in the community, all the way up to being president of a major automobile manufacturer, just shows you what kind of guy Derek Polk was. And he's going to live on because of the impact he had on not only the thousands of people working at Nissan, but everyone in the fraternity in Metro Jackson as well in the state of Mississippi. So I just wanted to close today's Big Boys episode in honor and memory of Derek Polk, and let the family know, the Polk family back in Mississippi know we're praying for him.
Great words there. Great way to honor your line, brother. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll leave it right there. More Big Boys, more content on the Pregame Show Network is still to come this week. Thank you guys so much.